Hello and welcome to KCIW's Curry Café. I'm Rick McNamer, producer and volunteer. Every Sunday, host Ray Gary puts together a program of guests who discuss various topics of interest to our community. As listeners, you can text in questions or comments about our discussion at 541-661-4098. Again, that's 541-661-4098. Now here's Ray to tell us about today's show.
Well, as usual, we've searched the entire community to find two interesting people who can enlighten us about their favorite subject. And I think I'll just turn it over to them now. We'll go around the table, have them introduce themselves.
Hello. Thank you for having us. I'm Sue Wright, and I'm with the Wild Rivers Film Festival. And one of the things we're trying to do is to honor Elmo Williams' legacy as a contributor to our community and an Oscar-winning filmmaker.
Hi, I'm Lon Goddard, and I worked a long time with Elmo Williams, doing 24 of his theater, stage, lecture, and screening productions for the Chetco Pelican Players. So we were quite good friends, and I'm here to talk about Elmo Williams.
Okay, who wants to start talking?
She does.
No. Let's start with a history of Elmo, because I only met him a couple of times at a Brian Scott Gallery event or two, so I only know him through his filmography, but you know him very well.
Many years back, not entirely sure how many, I wound up hosting a TV program, variety show here in Brookings that was run solely on the educational station. And it was called Coast Stories, wherein myself and a videographer ran about interviewing people who were of interest here on the coast. And we ran across Elmo Williams, who had retired here in Brookings. And that was a severe introduction, I can say. So I have an interview with him from way back when on Coast Stories, and we became quite friendly. I also then was somehow moved into the Chetco Pelican Players through my interest in films and theater, and suggested that we should do a lot of programs on Elmo because he had so much history in cinema, not to mention an Oscar for High Noon. We got together and we started out by doing a lecture show for the Pelican Players. I think it was 2002, and we did High Noon. And it was such a success that we did 24 further ones, and then we bookended it with High Noon once again before that was the end of all those shows. And so there we are. That's my history with Elmo Williams.
Could I ask a quick question before you go? What did you ever find out why he chose Brookings as a place to retire?
No, I'm not sure about that.
I did hear a quick interview the other day, and I'm a relative newcomer here, so I didn't know a lot about Elmo Williams and even the Brookings area, but I fell in love. What I heard was him and his wife were just kind of cruising up and down, and like me, how can you not fall in love with this place?
That would rather figure.
That's the story I've heard, too, through Christine Olson, who knew him very well.
Okay.
There's stories of a number of famous people having homes off in the woods and down the road and here and there, and just wondering why they have chosen here.
Well, Elmo found a rather elaborate structure right on the sea, which had a gazebo. Well, it had a little finger stretching right out into the ocean, which he had a gazebo constructed on. Uh-huh. So it was really an excellent house, excellent view. And whenever he talked to anybody or decided just to sit in the sun and watch the Pacific lap, he would walk right out there onto this gazebo and sit there, and it was fantastic, which is where I did the interview with him when I first met him.
Sounds like he picked an admirable place to retire.
He did.
Yeah, it certainly is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I want to remind again for all y'all out there that we do have a text line, questions and comments, 541-661-4098.
Then a little bit down the road, Elmo got interested in the idea of doing a memorial. And it wound up being the Azalea Park's Capella, which is now constructed, which is a replica of a larger one back east, but an exact replica. He fell in love with the one back east and decided that he was going to come out here and do a tribute to his wife who passed away. Now, originally, he was not going to do that. He wanted to start, I don't know whether I should mention this, but I probably should. He said
We're G-rated here now, you understand?
He wanted to start a community center for the town. That was his idea, that he was going to start as a tribute to his wife when she left. But somehow or other, it got meandered into the idea of constructing the Capella. And that's what we have today, which is a marvelous structure. So I'm not saying anything against it in any way. But it was originally a different idea. But once he got himself arranged on some kind of pursuit, he was well into it. So he produced and created that Capella, that marvelous structure, pretty much all on his own. And there it stands today and will do.
So that's used for weddings and things like that, is that right?
It has multiple uses, yes. It's got a custodian, and it's open for anyone who wants to book it.
So it's owned by the city?
Yes, he contributed to the city on his passing.
So if you wanted to use it for something, you would contact the city?
You would. And it's a place of solitude, which is open, even if it's not an event, for you to just sit there and become pastoral.
I have a story about the Capella. Happened to be last October. I've been by it a few times. I used to walk my dog through there. It's a beautiful park, and it's a beautiful structure. You're right. Every time I walked by it, though, it was not open, but you could see how wonderful it would be just to go in there, sit, meditate, or if you had a wedding. Well, one day, me and my little dog, she's gone now, but we were walking around. It was a Monday morning or late morning, and I see about 4 or 5 people there. A young, wonderful, sweet-looking couple. The guy had this loudest suit on that I've ever seen. Looked like something would be on Let's Make a Deal or something like that. And they both had these wild tennis shoes. Anyway, they were getting married that day. And I'm just walking by with my dog, kind of far away, didn't want to disturb anybody. And they called me over, and my dog wasn't the best behaved dog, but as I'm walking near there, she starts a little growling stuff, and they asked me to sign to be a witness for their wedding. And it was only them, the lady minister who was marrying them, and I guess they had one other, whatever it was. I said, well, sure, if you don't mind. And I'm in my garb. I didn't look very presentable to me, but it didn't matter to them. Wonderful, happy couple, walked in. Yeah, let my dog come in there too, sign the witnessing, and then as we left, they wanted a picture of me and my dog and them, and I still have it on my phone. You can't see it on the radio, so I don't need to show it. It was one of the best experiences I've had since I've been here a little over 6 years, and I really cherished that. And it was just that my first time I'd been in the Capella, and what a beautiful place, and
it's a wonderful place to take photos.
A positive feeling. It was just great. Like I said, one of my best experiences since I've been here.
Well, for our audience who would like to see the inside of the Capella at some point, Elmo Williams Day is April 27th, so it's a Sunday, and the tribute for Elmo Williams will take place beginning at the Capella. So there will be memorabilia and people there talking about who he was, but also about the Capella as a place before the screening of the film.
High Noon.
I don't think it's High Noon this year, though. It's a different... I can't remember which one it is now, though.
20,000 Leagues?
No, we did 20,000 Leagues yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's, yes, it's the, the Cary Grant film. Now Now I'm trying. The title now escapes me. I'm pretty poor. It's one of his lesser-known ones.
Oh, okay.
A very early one. Mr. Darn, I'd need help on that one.
Not Bringing Up Baby or anything like that.
Is it like Mr. Magnificent or something like
That's
that?
it.
Right?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's The Amazing Adventure of Mr. Bliss.
That's it.
Okay.
Yes. We finally got
Well,
there.
I'm going to show up that day, and I'm going to bring my phone and show my little pictures to people.
Yes.
'Cause
It's a great little film, I have to say. Elmo has so many films, it's hard for me to remember half of them, except for the huge ones with the great titles we all know. And The Adventure of Mr. Bliss is one of the earliest.
Wow. And I'm a big black and white older film buff myself. That's where I have a running jokes into my wife. She would always ask me if I ever watch anything in color because I was such a fan of the old black and white films. And I know he was part of a lot of those.
He was indeed.
Yeah, very
was
cool.
indeed.
So you were talking about Elmo building the Capella, but his wife Lorraine and he were very instrumental in creating the Azalea Park where it's located. Is that not right?
That's true. But I was saying earlier, basically, Elmo really wanted to do a tribute to Lorraine by creating a community center for the town, which has not yet been done. And so that was on the boards for quite a while before the Capella kind of rather took over, which was kind of something that Elmo was on the periphery interested in. And then other people got involved and it rather took over. And suddenly it was something that, according to the things that he told me, he rather couldn't control because it was on its way. It's a rather large concept and a huge thing to actually do. So it was moving along. Not that he wanted to stop it, but he was then unable to do what he wanted to do originally, which was that community center. But I'm glad we have it. And while it was under construction, the town asked me, and I'm not bragging here. Honestly, I'm not.
No,
but the
you wouldn't do that.
The town asked me.
No, you will, and I know you wouldn't do it. Go ahead.
No, I would never do that. I wouldn't draw any publicity towards me. Not at all. But the town asked me to involve myself in a memorial in Azalea Park for Elmo. And so the Parks and Rec people there, they got to me, and I talked with Nancy Tuttle, who was a wonderful sculptress, and we created a bronze plaque which has a figure in profile of Elmo that she sculpted first and then photographed and then made into this plaque. And I was asked to write something. So I wrote a little poem, which is on that brass plaque and sits in a little alcove in Azalea Park to this day. So you can sit there on a bench and all that, read the thing, and then you can wander off.
Well, it's a good place to wander throughout
Yes,
that
it
whole
is.
park. It's really a beautiful place. I come from the Sacramento Valley, and we have a lot of parks there, and they're beautiful, but
As do I.
nothing. Oh, is that right?
Elk Grove High School.
Loomis, California, Del Oro High School, but if you know a little
we
bit
beat
about
you at football.
Oh, I know. That wasn't fair. No, but anyway, again, I've been here a little over 6 years, and the park, Azalea Park, with its panoramic views of this whole community and the ocean and the green mountains, hills, it's just not, it doesn't compare to most anything that I'm used to. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And another little quick personal story, I think, that what I garnered from watching some stuff is that Elmo asked his children, I don't know, wasn't privy to the exact amount, but he wanted to spend a lot of of their inheritance building the Capella. Does that story ring true at all, or?
Yes, well, it's true. He certainly wanted to do something which was a tribute to his name, which
Yes.
his kids have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were certainly involved
Yeah, okay.
in that way.
So, Lon, remind me, how many of these interviews for films you did with Elmo?
The Elmo screening lecture shows. There were 24 of them.
24.
And we started in 2002 with High Noon. And as I mentioned before, we bookended it in 2011 with High Noon once again.
So of those, which interview was your favorite and why?
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Well, tell us more about that interview.
Well, we always had something pretty elaborate to open each one of the shows. We would do some manner of skit. Sometimes it involved Elmo, sometimes it didn't, but it always led into the interview, which is situated at the side of the stage. And this is the Chetco Playhouse with the Chetco Pelican players who did all of these shows. We would always have this alcove ready for the interview, but the entire rest of the stage was devoted to a skit of some sort. They got from fairly simple to really elaborate. It was quite elaborate for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, wherein I sat next to him with fish and other things dangling from the roof and talked about it for a little while before a giant squid arm built by Mike Moran came in from the right of the stage and suddenly wrapped itself around me while I attempted to sing Whale of a Tale, Boys, that Kirk Douglas did in the film, and it dragged me off stage. Elmo shot up and grabbed a pre-positioned giant harpoon and said, "I'll save you," and went towards the wings. And there was a great deal of commotion, and the curtains rattled. And then I came out covered with these little spots of circular red as if suction cups had really done me in. And then Elmo came out, and then we sort of moved to the right of the stage, sat down, and commenced the interview where he talked about the film, which he won an editing Oscar for. And not mentioned anywhere generally known, he also directed the underwater scenes, including the squid sequences.
The underwater scenes are my favorite. They're pretty intense.
And moving right along quickly to High Noon, which might be mentioned in a little while, that was probably the most elaborate opening sequence, wherein at that time we had a lot of art walk musicians in the town, people who played every instrument, violin, some people played reeds, lots of people played guitar, some played bass. But all of these people were rounded up into, I think there were 7 of them, what we called the posse. And the posse got together and we did a lot of rehearsals on a Randy Newman song called Rider in the Rain, because it seemed to be kind of funny in its way and also adapted well to High Noon. So all these people did a skit wherein we sat around a campfire. Well, myself and Rudy, who is gone, tall, big, skinny Rudy, me and him sat behind a campfire discussing where all the rest of the posse had gone, because they're out in the hills looking for Bad Boy Williams. We talked about that and said, well, I don't know where they are. I don't know if they got him or not. Oh, I hear him coming. Clip, clop, clip, clop. Mike Moran in the booth gives us the sound of horses. Then all of a sudden, all these people really elaborately dressed in Western stuff came from the side of stage with all their guns and paraphernalia, started laying them around on the stage, and then situated themselves in predestined spots. And then we talked for a little bit. You go out and feed the horses. You go out and do this. We better get a night's sleep. And then I think Rudy said, we always sleep better if we do a song. So I said, and I'm the marshal, by the way. I'm standing out front with the marshal's badge and that. I said, okay, let's do a song then, because it's going to be a short night. Then we launched into Rider in the Rain with full-scale harmonies that equaled the Eagles, I have to tell you.
Awesome.
We finished the song and all that, and we were about to prepare for bed when somebody said, it's him! It's Bad Boy Williams himself! And in from the side left comes Elmo, banging with guns that are going blang, blang with really big blanks and smoke. He shot everybody. And there were twists and turns as everybody died. Rudy let off a shotgun, bang, and then died. I'm standing there. Elmo goes click, click, and he's out of ammo. So I went up and arrested him. And then I took him behind the hands and arms, and I escorted him over to the side stage where we had the little tiny set for the interview. I took his gun off him, I sat him down, and then I said, "Now talk." And it commenced.
He could talk, couldn't he?
Oh, he could talk the ears off a donkey. And he sat there with his Oscar throughout the whole time.
And I also understand, from what I understand, he passed away at 102, but up until he passed, he was just about as vim and vigorous as he was when he was younger. That's the stories I've heard. Again, I never met them.
It's so true. I used to worry about him driving all the way up until he was 108. When he was driving, he did it exactly like it was on film. When you see people in close-up where there's a passenger seat and somebody whose hands are on the wheel, and those hands are wiggling about, jerking. Well, and a backdrop behind you saying that you're going somewhere. He drove just like that.
I have to ask real quick, since I'm not privy to how they filmed all these things. I was a big fan, of course, as a kid. Even now, I'll still watch 20,000 Leagues. It's just fun. Takes me back. I always thought those underwater scenes, I thought, nah, they're probably not even underwater. It's behind an aquarium. I didn't know. They were filmed underwater with all that garb that they had on?
They were. They were filmed in the tropics. I believe it was near the Bahamas.
Wow.
The underwater scenes were filmed underwater.
Okay.
And in the tropics.
That's a new one on me. Now I'll look at it differently.
There were far fewer special effects in 1954.
You bet.
So.
Yeah, and it might be a little dated to everybody that loves the CGI that you can do everything, but that's still, it's better for me.
Yeah, every now and then I'm looking at an old movie and it has like thousands of people or something like, some the big battle, and I think those are all real people. It's not
right.
There were, of course, soundstage scenes where there were close-ups of people on deck and hordes of buckets of water being thrown at everybody. But the underwater scenes were underwater.
I'll be darned. Plus, it
so I can't even remember much of the film. It's been so long. So did they have the actual stars or the actual actors underwater?
I don't think the underwater scenes required the actual stars. So
okay.
They were always on deck. They got soaked, but I don't think.
Plus, that movie had one of my all-time favorites, James Mason, who could not like James. I just love that guy.
Oh, he was Captain Nemo. No one else was.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a lot of good memories thinking about that movie. And High Noon. Again, black and white, old movies, my favorite. So there we go.
Yes, a big story. Elmo was involved with the making of that film. Stanley Kramer, I believe, was the original director. And they'd shot all the footage. He didn't like it, Kramer. He said, no, this is not going to be anything at all. It's just a mishmash. And he said, so I'm just going on holiday or the weekend and just leave it on the shelf. Elmo asked if he could just look at the footage and see what he could do with it while Kramer was away. So during that weekend is when he pieced it all together. He took all those clocks that were in it and decided he was going to put them in sequence and use that as the running theme, that the clock hands were going to get ticker, ticker, ticker till they got to noon. And he did that all the way through. And when Kramer got back and saw it, he said, that's fantastic. The film works. Well done. And so the film went out, and it, as you see, won its Oscar and now becomes a classic and remains a classic. And it was just 2 clocks that Elmo said he couldn't control. There were 2 outdoor scenes, and they were actually the same scene. They were just used twice in the film, where an overhanging clock in the street, he couldn't fix that. So that clock is out of sequence twice. And he went to ground thinking, damn it, I wish I could have fixed that.
Well, and that's a timeless movie still to me, I think. The moral, of the story basically. And yeah, it even though it was an old Western, it still makes a lot of sense to me.
I have a small thing to add in about High Noon that not everybody knows is David Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash's father was the cinematographer on that. And I believe he won some kind of an award too, but I don't know. You see his name in the beginning when the wagon wheels are going, and his name is there.
That's quite amazing. A big attachment there to Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Yeah.
Yes. Well done, Ray.
When they formed the group and Crosby was becoming somewhat famous, and his father didn't think he could do anything with that stupid music stuff, and his father was driving down Hollywood Boulevard or something, and there was a great big billboard with the three of them there, and that's when he first started to believe in him.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Crosby, Stills and Nash and harmonies, I believe, Lon, did you have a special song you wanted to do?
Well, I thought for just out of thinking of the past, I might drag up Rider in the Rain.
Oh, my.
Which was the opening sequence for the production we did at the Czechopellinger Players of High Noon. At the very end, it was the last Elmo show, our most elaborate one that I described earlier. I didn't play on that one. I was out front acting as the sheriff, doing the lead vocal with all the musicians behind me, doing those fantastic harmonies. So I had to try and construct it to do it as a solo, which I've not done until last week. But I'll have a go at it.
Well, please do. Please do.
Thank you.
Awesome. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful picking and singing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lon. That's great.
And words from Randy Newman, right? Randy Newman?
Randy Newman, yep.
He's I guess he's not really.
There was always a sense of irony in almost everything he ever wrote.
Oh, my goodness. He has so many, dozens and dozens of songs that are, like I said, they all have a little bit of irony in them. I went to New York one time to see Prairie Home Companion. And you don't know ahead who's going to be on the show. And we're sitting in the bar next to the theater talking about, we didn't know who the musical guest was going to be. And there was a guy sitting at the bar with us, was part of the show. And when he said he was Randy Newman, I was very excited.
I interviewed Randy Newman in about 1967, something like that, when I think he had just brought out, I Think It's Going to Rain Today. Actually, no, Jack Jones recorded it. I Think It's Going to Rain Today, one of the first Randy Newman songs to ever see a release by anyone. And so he was then an upcoming songwriter, so I got to sit there and have a couple of bottles of wine with him as a reporter for Record Mirror in London, which I did for quite some time, being a music business person over in England for about 25 years.
He and his family were well-known composers.
Yes.
Did a lot of
cinematic
background music and things from movies that you never would have believed in.
Alfred Newman. He was just a descendant of a huge line of people in that area, but the first one to go into songwriting. And the last, so far as I know.
But he's not. He's still alive, isn't he?
Yes.
So he may pop up any day with a song.
He's an Oscar winner, surviving.
Sue, I was going to ask you about the Wild Rivers Film Festival, which is August. Is that correct?
August this year, 2025. It's August 14 to 17. So 4 days of all the films you can watch.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, are these usually only indie films, or do they, like, for example, we talk High Noon, or any old other classics that they run occasionally?
So this is just our third year, but they have been, so that we are part of the formal film festival circuit.
Okay.
So the films that we are screening are new. They're not in distribution yet. So typically a film will launch itself through the film festival circuit, and the idea is that, you want awards and that you can highlight, and then that helps when you go to distribution to get a contract with the studio.
All right. And you all work with a lot of the indigenous people?
We are working
this area,
with the
which is huge.
Tolowa Dini Nation.
Okay.
A big part of that is our film workshop for the kids in the summer. So last year we launched our first filmmaking workshop for 12 to 18-year-olds. And they got 4 days of intense instruction with professional filmmakers at the college campus. And then we went on location for 2 days, and they helped film this short documentary called Canoe, which tells the story of the Tolowa's first traditional canoe building project in generations.
Mm-hmm.
And by the second half of the second day, the kids are running all the equipment. They're running everything. So we have
That's awesome.
director and a cinematographer on site, but the kids they're our film crew. And it's
That's
just
great.
amazing to see these kids gain this confidence in such a short time. So we're looking forward to hosting a film workshop this summer, this last 2 weeks of June. So June 16th to the 27th. We're going to expand from 7 days to 10, and probably from 20 to 30 kids. So we're
That's great.
really excited about that.
That's great. And then for those of you that, like we all did, really enjoyed Lon's music, he plays around town quite often. Where do you plan to play? I know you were at Kuntai last night.
I was.
Okay, and so where's your next happening?
Next will be Misty Mountain, which I believe is next Friday.
Right.
No,
next?
it's next Saturday, excuse me. Misty
Okay.
Mountain next Saturday. Then I'm back at the Coon the following Wednesday, and then I'll be doing Groundlings Pizza. And I'm heading out to Europe with my lady Claire. We're leaving on the 21st of April. We won't be back until the 28th
Okay.
of May. So we're going to be over there quite a long time. I'll be staying with a lot of friends because of all the time I spent there. We'll be going to Paris with friends I have there, and also to Spain, have friends there too. I'll be staying a couple of days with the magnificently legendary folk singer Roy Harper in Clonakilty in Ireland for just a couple of days like that. And then nipping right back over to England for a couple more days before leaving on the 28th of May to get back here. Then I'll be doing Pete's Bar and Grill, and I'm doing a gig down in Sacramento at the British pub, the Fox and Goose.
Oh, gosh, I haven't
Down
been to
there.
there. That was a very wonderful place to go.
It was, and it was
I
my
think-
breath of England when I lived in Sacramento.
Bet. You bet. On 10th, no, was it 10th? Well, I can't remember. There was an old railroad tracks that used to run by there.
Right in town on the railroad
That's right.
track.
That's right.
I used to gasp in there for a pint of Fuller's after I lived in England all that time, but I've never played it, so now this is being arranged.
Interesting.
And I'm hoping that half of Elk Grove, those who are still standing from my high school days, are going to show up.
That's awesome.
And that'll be on July 15th, Tuesday, if I have it right.
And I believe because I catch up on some of the Sacramento news, and I'm not going to remember the exact happenings, but the Fox and Goose, I think they've had a revamped place within the last 3 months. There was some kind of thing that popped up that I don't know if they had a fire or something, but anyway, it's a popular place. It was way back then, and it still is. My wife and I used to frequent there all the time.
Well, the
Good
thing,
stuff.
because it's a touch of British, it was a little rendezvous that I could escape to now and again. And they have a version, the U.S. import version of Fuller's beer. But anyone in Britain, and so would I, would still describe it as fizz because it's infiltrated with, infused with CO2, which most British beer here is. And all American beer seems to be. Over there, everything is cask brewed, which means it gets any of its bubbliness by just sitting in the cask, waiting for it to occur. Goes down a lot easier. The ABV, alcohol per volume, is a lot lower. So in Britain, you can sit there and have 10 pints of that and still have a logical discussion. But that's not possible over here, where beer reaches up into the 7 and 8 ABVs. But still, I run for the Fox and Goose because it has Fuller's British beer, at least the U.S. version of it.
Wow, bring back old memories there.
And they do lots of folk singers and associated British things in the establishment.
Right on. Do they drink at room temperature there? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I thought that was the British. That's
the British thing is just a little bit colder than room temperature, yes.
Okay.
It is not iced up, unless it's lager, which is that golden stuff with even more fizz in it, and which will make you immediately leave the pub if you're a real ale drinker.
By the way, everybody, please text in comments or questions here at 541-661-4098. We're really enjoying ourselves here today.
So, Lon, I wonder if it's not too embarrassing, if you can tell us how you wound up in London and doing all those things, and what did you do when you were there?
Oh, it's a total embarrassment.
Well, you could skip the embarrassing part then.
All right. Then.
Are there women still looking for you to? No.
Let me leap over that embarrassment and say that no, it was a whim. It was an abject whim. I graduated from Elk Grove. One of my best friends was the student body president by the name of Ivan Posnikov, known as Chip Posnikov at that time. And he was interested in drama. He was in drama in the high school. So however he did it, I'm not sure, but he arranged to have a drama course in Manchester University in England. We had both graduated. We got ourselves a little flat in Sacramento, and he was going to State College. I was going to City because I was dumber than him. And he arranged this course. So he said, I'm going to England one day. I said, you what? Yeah, so we'll have to let the flat go. Well, I had $1,000 in the bank from some accident and a trust fund, so I asked my folks if I could pull that out. My dad said, no, you can't go to England. You have to stay. You've got responsibilities, like, for instance, the military. And I said, no, I need to go with Ivan. He's going over there for this trip. I want to go to England. My mother said, let him go. He needs to go. She released the funds. And so I said to Ivan, I'm going too. And we went. We got some crazy Russian guy we found on newspaper ads who was going to drive from Sacramento to New York. And we got in the car with him and had lots of adventures along the way to get to New York, where we were booked on the New Amsterdam for Southampton in Britain. And we had fun on the ship. He looked like a member of the crew, and they took him below and taught him stuff. I didn't. I just was fancying some girl on the thing and wasted my time. But I did win a talent show on board with my guitar, playing a Donovan song. Donna, Donna, Donna. And then we arrived in Southampton, and we hitchhiked our way to London. And I had a duffel bag and a guitar. He had his duffel bag. And then from there, we hitchhiked up to Manchester, asserted ourselves in the college. He got his course all set up. I said, I got nothing better to do. So I signed up for a course, which they let me do, in English and American literature. I thought it would be kind of cute to see what the British did with American literature. But I didn't spend much time doing that. It was really interesting, but I got bored with it. And I was watching TV in the group room and seeing Top of the Pops and programs like that where pop stars were booming and folk stuff was really going. So I got my guitar. Everybody said, go down to London, that's where it's happening. And I kept hitching down to London and playing with people in the folk clubs and then hitching back up for my classes until I couldn't do that anymore. So I quit the college, stayed in London. I moved in with Roy Harper, the famous folk singer, who was not famous just then, but getting there. He said, do a drawing of me since you're doing caricatures, because I could always do that. I did a drawing of him. It wound up the cover of his first album, which he arranged right there while we were living in this little flat in Fordwich Road in Kilburn in London. So that went out. It's now a classic. I played on 2 tracks on it, second guitar. And then I went into gradually into the music business. That's more stories to get there, to wind up as a reporter on Record Mirror, hired for doing caricatures, I might say, and then soon becoming a writing member of the staff. And then Roy asked me to do another album later on down the line, and so I did the cover of his album called Flat Baroque and Berserk, which was the first album on the Harvest label, and it remains the most popular of his 23 albums to date. Now, Roy is 83, and I'm 77, and when Claire and I get there over to England, I'll be staying with him in Clonakilty for a couple of days and trying to wind up how things all went.
Speaking of winding up how things all went and bringing this back to the film festival, your shenanigans in Britain have ended up in a film that's been released in Eastern Europe, if not in the U.S. yet.
So true.
And
so you want to tell us a little bit about Dezo and this film?
I was just going to say, we had a text and it says, did I hear that Lon is in one of the Wild River Festival films? That was the text.
We're hoping. We're working on it.
Okay. And I'm so pleased to be in it. Thank you for involving me. It's true. A little while back, a few years ago, let me go right back to Record Mirror, where I was a reporter. They had a staff photographer, an older fellow called Dezo Hoffman. Dezo was Czechoslovakian. He was a war photographer during the war. And he wound up in London. Somehow he wound up shooting pop stars and got associated then by that with the Beatles, who were just forming. Dezo became their official photographer for the early years of their form and all the early hits that they have. He was the official guy there. So moving back more to the present, the Czechs, well, as the Czechoslovakian Slovak Empire altered and it became Slovakia in several segments, they decided they wanted to do a documentary on Dezo, who had passed. So they gathered everybody and everything they possibly could do about this famous photographer. And I had met him and dealt with him because he was our Record Mirror staff photographer. So they flew myself and my lady Claire down to Oakland, California, filmed us talking about Dezo, showing a lot of the prints that I still have of his that he did during those periods of the Beatles and a little bit beyond that. And then that wound up in a documentary, Dezo Hoffman, Beatles Photographer. That is a 90-minute full-length film, a fantastic film, which features lots of other people, including Paul McCartney and Sting and people like that, everybody who knew anything to do with Dezo. And so there I am, right next to these people, even though not exactly on the same stage. It kind of feels like that in this great film. But it was only released to festivals in the East as yet. I'm sure they have every intention of showing it in the West. It is subtitled because some of it is in Czech. And so we have a chance now, thank you to Sue and Wild Rivers Film Festival, to show this film, which is immensely interesting, a piece of history. I'm really proud to be in it. And thank you, Sue, for bringing it forward in the West.
Well, keep your fingers crossed, all you music buffs, because I think it'll be fantastic.
Awesome.
Being a rock photographer in those days was much different than it is now, where they allowed to photograph the first 3 songs of the concert or the last 3 or something like that, and they have to stay. There's no more crawling all over the stage to get the close-up pictures and things like there was then.
Dezo was so close to the Beatles that he's the one that shot all those pictures of them airborne on a street. He could pose anyone. He had this natural, heavy accented facility capacity for asking people to do something interesting, and they did it.
Well,
I think, as I recall, I don't know, he probably wouldn't mind if I said, the only reason that he parted from the Beatles later on was John Lennon had a problem with his hairline. He always thought it was too high. I have that problem. But in any case, the Beatles were allowed to look at everything before it went out. But Dezo shot some film of Lennon on a jet ski pulled behind a boat. And, of course, there's a bit of wind involved in that. And his hair was just sweeping behind. Well, he let that go to somebody, and that really angered Lennon to the point. So he personally had Dezo excised from doing anything further with the Beatles. Later on down the years, though, they met in a hotel room and everything was fine. Lennon actually apologized for having made that move and said, sorry, man, it was just a thing at the time. And Dezo said, fine, and all that. So that was all alleviated, but there were no more photographs by Dezo from that point. The Beatles are really huge by that time anyway.
I want to ask you, Lon, is there any group or person who inspired you to play the guitar to start out with, and how young were you? Because I know for me, it was the Beatles. That was, I was in the North Sacramento neighborhood. Everybody had a garage band after the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan, and that's what got me going. But what about you? Anybody, inspired you more than others, or just kind of a general?
Let me do a fast sweep. When I was about 10, my folks, I don't know why, but they enrolled me in lap steel guitar classes.
Oh, my.
I've got no idea why they did that.
My mom
Interesting
played one.
start.
Yeah.
At the time, it was a lap steel acoustic, sitting there with the bar and doing this. And the teacher was very good, taught me how to do this stuff with, they look like anagrams on paper or what. But I stayed with that for graduating into an electric steel lap. And then finally he said, one day, I've taught you all I know. So off you go. At that point, rock and roll was coming in with the Everly Brothers, people like that. This was probably about 1956, 55. I think I might have started 55 on the steel. I'm 77, born in 47. So 55, 6, somewhere in there anyway. And there was these kids around wanting to play Everly Brothers stuff. Well, I couldn't do that on the lap steel. Just didn't work. But they said, we don't have a bass player. And somehow I wound up playing the bass lines on an electric steel for this duo who were trying to do Everly Brothers stuff.
That's a stretch.
Well, it was a stretch. And I got kind of bored with that. So I got a little book saying Acoustic Guitar 101 and started learning that stuff. It was a stamp book guitar. That's what it was. No brand. Blue chip stamps or one of those anyhow. And I started learning from a book. And I'll tell you who influenced me the most was Donovan.
Okay.
Absolutely. His finger picking was so smooth.
I'll be done.
And he had rhythms of using your thumb and forefinger and the rest to create something that was orchestral that I had not heard so smooth before. I love Dylan's routines in the same manner, but they were quicker and faster and swept by. But Donovan's were real slow and real smooth. And so I started trying to learn that from his records. I was glued to a little 45 player for so long, trying to figure this out. I had it wrong for so long, too. And then one day, something happened to me, and boing, I realized that something was going. All the time. I thought, that's how you do it. That's it. And I got into that, and I started playing all the time and learning Buffy St. Marie stuff and things by Paul Simon. Tim Hardin was very big in the things I learned to play. And then, of course, at 17, I ran over to Britain, and everybody could do this stuff better than me. In the folk clubs, I started learning it from them. Roy Harper taught me a whole lot. And then I played around for a while, but not well. I had a terrible voice, frankly, and I tried to do crappy instrumentals. And then I went into the music business as a reporter, so I let it slide. But I never stopped playing. It was only when I got back here and eventually wound up living in Oregon and met my wonderful sweetheart, Claire Willard, who is right here to my left and always has been since then, who said, "Could you play songs for me?" And I started to play a few songs for her. And then I got really interested. And I've been playing songs in the coast, up and down this whole area, for 25 years because she asked me to.
Well, and we're all the better for it, let me tell you.
Thank you.
So it started out with a honey-do list then.
It started out,
A honey-do list.
well, I thought there was a band called the Honeydew. I suppose it did.
Instead of fixing the leaky sink, you played music. You had a better deal than I did.
By the way, we did have another text real quick. Absolutely love the stories, so very interesting. Thank you, texter. We all are having a good time. Well, we only have about, what am we looking at here? I'm sorry, 7 minutes. Lon, do you want to do another song before we
Oh, absolutely. I'd love
Can you
to.
do that?
If you don't mind. Let me just do a...
have a text. Tour girl wants to hear John Prine.
I want to hear John Prine.
One of my, and I heard Lon do one of my favorites the other day, Paradise, one of my all-time favorite songs. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
I think my lady Claire requested this one. I'm going to have to jump over your request if you don't remind mine there. Rick, I'm going to have to supersede you there.
That's quite all right.
And do this John Prine song, which is called All the Best.
Beautiful.
I'd like to dedicate that to Dana Sens Hall.
Yay, yay. What a beautiful way to go out.
Yeah,
We're not all the way out, but we're getting close. Thank you, Lon.
Close.
And thank you, Sue, for being here.
Fun to be here. It's all about community.
It certainly is. And this is a first for Curry Café to have live music on our show, right?
On
I
this
think
show,
you should
yes.
do it again.
Well, I was.
You want to do it next week?
I was going to suggest that we have Lon back in the future.
We will definitely do that.
Tell us some of his adventure stories that he lived in England.
All shall be revealed.
I've heard.
Oh, that's great.
I've heard little snippets of them in the past, and I think it'd be fun to have you back to do that.
Definitely. That finger picking, that's one thing I never could do very well. I'm still working on Alice's Restaurant, and it ain't getting too far.
Always
a song.
Always amazed me.
Well, no, I wouldn't do Otis at all. 25, 30 minutes, I can't remember. How did he do that?
18 minutes.
How did he do that? And just winging all of that.
I doubt it. It was written.
Playing. Anyway.
He says at his shows now, he hasn't done it in years live,
Yeah.
and he claims he can't remember the words. And two of his kids play with him, and he said he was playing a show one night, and he forgot the words, forgot where he was, and he leaned back to his son. He said, "What's next?"
The 17 photographs that went over the cliff, and
Yeah,
Picture
and
that. Was it circles and arrows on the back of each one?
and the kid didn't know what the next words were. So
God.
after the show, they got on stage and says, "I know my father's songs."
Well, okay, man. This has been a wonderful, wonderful hour where we are approaching the end of the show. I again want to thank Sue and Lon and
that's Claire over there.
Claire, the tour girl.
Claire Willard, let me just add, her haunted house is coming up, her annual haunted house coming up again next October. It's a little while to wait, but always remember, Claire Willard's haunted house for the Chetco Pelican Players.
Okay.
Every October, biggest production the theater does all year.
My mother-in-law did that too up in down in Anderson, California. Okay, folks. Well, that's about it. We'll be back next Sunday.
We'll have some amazing guests once again.
Should have. So
Thank
you all. And you're listening to KCIW LP, beautiful Brookings, Oregon, 100.7 FM. Thank you.